Welcome back to Important Updates, global news without the noise. Subscribe to stay updated. Why are there not more people talking about the growing tensions between the US and Canada, two countries whose partnership has shaped the global economy for decades? The United States and Canada share more than just the world's longest undefended border, stretching over 5,500 miles. This boundary is a symbol of peace, cooperation, and mutual respect that has endured for generations. Beyond geography, they share a deep, historically stable, economic partnership, one that has been a cornerstone of prosperity for both nations. For decades, goods, services, and capital have flowed freely across this border, creating millions of jobs and fostering integrated supply chains. Industries like automotive manufacturing, energy, and agriculture have become so interconnected that a single car assembled in Detroit may contain parts that have crossed the border multiple times before completion. This seamless cooperation has allowed both countries to compete globally, innovate, and grow together. But now, this alliance faces one of its most significant tests in recent memory. Political tensions and shifting global priorities are putting unprecedented strain on this once rock-solid relationship. Canada's push to diversify its trade partners, seeking new markets in Europe and Asia, has drawn a sharp response from the US. American officials worry about losing their privileged access, raising questions about national sovereignty, economic loyalty, and the future of North American integration. The climate of uncertainty is a stark departure from the predictability businesses once relied on. Companies that once planned years ahead now find themselves navigating a landscape where policies can shift overnight. Sudden, politically motivated trade threats, tariffs, regulatory changes, or new border checks are forcing companies to reconsider investments, supply chains, and long-term strategies. The ripple effects are felt from small family farms to multinational corporations. At the center is a clash of leadership and vision, an America-first agenda that prioritizes domestic interests, versus Canada's drive for global diversification and resilience. Both sides are determined to protect their economies, but their approaches are fundamentally at odds. This fundamental divergence has set the stage for a high-stakes confrontation, with legal battles, diplomatic negotiations, and public opinion all playing a role in shaping the outcome. The outcome will shape not just US-Canada trade, but could send ripples through the entire global economic order. As the world watches, the decisions made here may redefine what partnership means in an era of uncertainty and change. The latest drama in North American trade relations began with a bold and unmistakable threat from President Trump. In a move that stunned both allies and critics, he took to the podium and issued a direct warning to Canada, signaling a dramatic escalation in the ongoing trade tensions between the two countries. The president announced the possibility of imposing a 100% tariff on all Canadian goods entering the United States. This wasn't just a minor adjustment or a targeted measure. It was a sweeping ultimatum that would impact every single product crossing the border from Canada. If enacted, this unprecedented tariff would instantly double the price of every Canadian product on American shelves, from maple syrup and lumber to cars and electronics. The move was framed as a direct response to Canada's ongoing trade negotiations with China, which the White House viewed with deep suspicion. President Trump characterized Canada's outreach to China as a betrayal of trust, warning that closer economic ties with Beijing could leave Canada exposed to new risks and undermine the long-standing partnership with the US. The threat sent immediate shockwaves through global markets and business communities on both sides of the border. What began as a policy disagreement quickly escalated into a full-blown crisis, with investors and executives scrambling to assess the potential fallout. Canadian exporters and American importers suddenly found themselves in a state of limbo, unable to make concrete plans or sign new contracts. The uncertainty left businesses large and small questioning their next steps and bracing for possible disruptions. Even the mere threat of such sweeping tariffs has already begun to chill commerce and investment. Companies are pausing expansion plans, delaying shipments, and preparing for the worst-case scenario, unsure of what the future holds. This aggressive move pushes the US-Canada relationship into truly uncharted territory, straining the trust and cooperation that have defined their alliance for decades. The stakes have never been higher for both nations. The question now looms large. Can the economic partnership between these two close neighbors withstand such intense political pressure, or are they headed for a lasting rupture that could reshape the future of North American trade? At the heart of the ongoing dispute between Canada and its closest allies lies a bold and controversial decision. Canada has chosen to strengthen its economic ties with China, a move that has sent ripples through the international community and raised eyebrows in Washington. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Mark Carney, the Canadian government is actively pursuing a strategic partnership with China. The goal is clear: diversify Canada's export markets and reduce the country's heavy reliance on the United States, which has long been its dominant trading partner. The recent agreement signed with China is limited in scope, but significant in impact. It focuses on lowering tariffs for Canadian canola oil, a major export crop, and for Chinese electric vehicles, which are rapidly gaining popularity in global markets. Canadian officials present this deal as a pragmatic solution, designed to benefit both exporters and consumers. They argue it will open new markets for Canadian farmers, provide more affordable green vehicles for Canadians, and support the country's environmental goals by encouraging clean technology. Prime Minister Carney has vigorously defended the move, insisting it serves Canada's national interest. At the same time, he has not shied away from criticizing what he calls economic coercion, a thinly veiled critique of U.S. trade tactics that have sometimes put pressure on Canadian industries. For Canada, this outreach to China is both a practical step to secure its economic future and a strategic maneuver to assert its independence on the world stage. For the United States, however, it is seen as a provocative act, one that threatens to undermine the unity and trust that have long defined North American trade relations. As tensions rise and negotiations grow more intense, Canada's calculated outreach to China has set the stage for today's high-stakes showdown, one that could reshape the balance of power in global trade for years to come. The fallout from Canada's China deal was immediate, escalating into a public war of words. President Trump accused Prime Minister Carney of turning Canada into a drop-off port for Chinese goods, implying Canada could help China bypass U.S. tariffs. Trump withdrew an invitation for Canada to join his Board of Peace, signaling a deep rift. Carney stood firm, defending Canada's right to make its own trade decisions and advocating for a rules-based order. The conflict has become a clash of national interests and leadership styles, with neither side backing down. What began as a trade dispute is now a matter of national pride and political principle, making resolution even harder. A 100% tariff on Canadian goods would have catastrophic consequences for both nations. For Canada, the U.S. is its largest trading partner. Such tariffs would devastate key industries and trigger a recession, but the U.S. would also suffer. Consumers would face higher prices, and industries like construction and automotive would see costs soar. The deeply integrated supply chains that define North American manufacturing would be shattered. Past disputes have shown that Canadian retaliation can hurt American businesses, too. A trade war would undermine decades of shared prosperity and stability. President Trump's threat introduces chaos and instability, risking mutual economic destruction. In a world this interconnected, aggressive trade actions can backfire on everyone. Standing in the way of Trump's tariff threat is the USMCA, the very trade pact he once championed. The agreement was designed to prevent sweeping, unilateral tariffs and includes dispute resolution mechanisms. Legal experts say the USMCA would make it extremely difficult for the US to impose such drastic tariffs on Canada. Any move to do so would trigger a lengthy legal battle and undermine the pact's credibility. Many see Trump's threat as political posturing, meant to pressure Canada, rather than a realistic policy. But if the U.S. ignores its own agreement, it raises serious questions about the reliability of North American trade rules. The conflict exposes a contradiction, championing rules-based trade while threatening to break those very rules. This standoff is just the latest in a series of trade conflicts straining U.S.-Canada relations during the Trump era. Previous disputes, like U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, sparked Canadian retaliation and consumer boycotts. These battles have made the once stable partnership unpredictable, forcing businesses to factor in political risk. Each new conflict builds on past grievances, eroding trust and making diplomatic solutions harder. Canadian officials know that pushing back can be effective, while the U.S. expects a strong response. The cycle of confrontation has replaced the cooperative spirit that once defined the relationship. The current tariff threat is not just a new problem, but part of a troubling pattern. The question remains, can the two countries break this cycle and restore trust? Despite the severity of Trump's threat, most experts doubt a 100% tariff will ever be enacted. They see it as classic high-pressure negotiation, meant to create leverage, not actual policy. The economic fallout would be too severe, and legal challenges under the USMCA too significant. Trump's move is also about projecting strength amid global tensions with China. The likely outcome? A negotiated settlement, with Canada offering reassurances and the US backing down from its most extreme threats. But the damage to trust and predictability is real. Both countries now face a more contentious, uncertain future. The US-Canada trade dispute has pushed their relationship into a precarious state. Trump's tariff threat over Canada's China deal has created deep economic and political uncertainty. This is more than a policy disagreement. It's a clash of leadership and diverging national strategies. A full-blown trade war would harm both economies, but decades of integration mean their prosperity is deeply linked. The USMCA faces a critical test, and restoring trust will be a long process. Only careful diplomacy and a return to dialogue can rebuild stability. This episode is a stark reminder. Stable trade between allies is essential for shared prosperity. The challenge now is to step back from the brink and rediscover the common ground that made this partnership so successful.